All right, to kick off mock draft 1.0, so we're gonna show you in 8 graphics of each 4 picks. So go and put up the first one right here. So Cam Ward, I think this is easy. Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, is going to go to the Tennessee Titans. We know Tennessee needs a quarterback. That goes without saying. Cam Ward will be the new franchise quarterback for the Titans. Best QB in this draft, I think. He's got a little bit of Caleb Williams in him. I think he's going to be really successful at the next level. I think the Browns, listen, no one has been more deprived of excellent play at the quarterback position or just having a quarterback than Cleveland. With that said, I love Shedeur. I don't know if he can work there. Abdul Carter, edge out of Penn State, is the best player in this year's draft. I think now with Myles Garrett, you know he's there in the long run. For as deprived of great quarterback play as the Browns are, in a division with 2 elite of current Mount Rushmore guys in Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, to have Abdul Carter, if he reaches his potential, which I think he will, on one side and Myles Garrett on the other, that is scary business for the AFC North. I think the Browns will take the best player in the draft. Travis Hunter, to me, is the second best player in the draft. He will go to the New York Giants, corner and obviously wide receiver out of Colorado. Listen, Heisman Trophy winner. We know what this guy brings to the table. I think he will be used primarily as a corner. He's the best corner easily in this draft. One of the better receivers in the draft as well. Can be a good, potentially number 2 receiver next to Malik Neighbors in New York. I think they wait next year to get their quarterback. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston can suffice this year. The Giants are potentially building something offensively. I think they'll try and strike and get their franchise quarterback in 2026. That leaves the Patriots. Man, the Patriots for a while, it's like, man, they might get the number 1 pick. That leaves them with Will Campbell. With that said, I don't think that's a bad pick at all. Will Campbell is the best offensive lineman this year's draft to tackle out of LSU. The number 1 objective for the Patriots is to protect Drake May, protect their greatest asset. Because Drake May, listen, bumpy at times, but let's keep in mind he had the worst roster in the NFL last year. Kid has promised. Will Campbell will be a New England Patriot. That's your top 4. Let's go to the next 4. And by the way, I want to also say this as well. No trades in this NFL mock draft. We have yet to have a first-round trade at all, and we're already in April. So I'm going to just go in this chalk all 32 teams that are making a first-round pick. So I think Kelvin Banks goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, tackle out of Texas. Again, protecting Trevor Lawrence. You could make a case for them to take a receiver to take the kid out of Arizona, obviously. But I think Kelvin Banks, they've already got their guy Brian Thomas Jr. as their number 1 receiver. Protect Trevor Lawrence. He's dealt with injuries the last couple of years. Get him a good tackle. Kelvin Banks to the Jaguars. I think the Raiders make a splash move. They go out and get Ashton Genty, Heisman Trophy runner-up, running back out of Boise State. His size concerns me a little, but again, shiftiness, quickness, getting to that next level speed. The Raiders are slowly building a solid offense right now. Geno Smith, you've got Brock Bowers. I think put Ashton Genty in the backfield, take the pressure off Geno. That could be a really good offense based on what they're building with Pete Carroll now as the head coach. I think the Jets take one of the top 5 players in the draft in Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. This guy is an absolute monster, catching the ball, blocking. Listen, some of them made the case for them to draft Shedeur. Again, maybe some of this is me just pulling for Shedeur to not go to a horrible situation like Cleveland or the Jets, who are the 2 most synonymous franchises with screwing up quarterbacks. But I think, listen, this is a guy who can go to a team with the Jets. Obviously, Justin Fields is a new quarterback. I think Aaron Glenn is trying to build a culture there. He's trying to instill a little bit of what he was a part of in Detroit. Tough guy, that mindset. Tyler Warren fits that well. Penn State guy, James Franklin, he goes to the New York Jets. Jalen Walker, edge rusher out of Georgia, goes to the Panthers. They need a pass rush. I thought about potentially having them take an offensive lineman, but I think right now, listen, their offensive line played better at the end of the season, which as a result led to Bryce Young playing better at the end of last year's regular season. Panthers, I think, are kind of a sneaky team to watch. I've said that for a while now. I'm just saying, Jalen Walker, obviously older brother, was the number 1 overall pick by Jacksonville in 2022. I think Jalen will be the better player. He will go to the Carolina Panthers. Go to the next 4th picks. So some of these feature some previous playoff teams. The Saints go with Teddy Roy McMillan, T-Mac, wide receiver out of Arizona. He's the best receiver in this year's draft. Speed, run after the catch, all of it. Superstar. Listen, again, this to me is the last team. If we're just going chalk for the draft, no trades made, I think this is the last team that could take Shedeur. I think there are some questions there. We have Derek Carr. That'll work. Let's put McMillan next to Chris Olave. We may have something offensively. Let's see what Kellen Moore can do with that squad. I'm not a Kellen Moore believer, so we'll see. But I think they go with the best receiver in this year's draft. Armand Membo tackle out of Missouri, goes to the Chicago Bears. So Chicago's already been making some big moves on this offensive line. They saw what Caleb Williams did last year, where there were some high moments and boy, there were some low moments, not a lot of in between, with a terrible offensive line. So what has Chicago done now with Ben Johnson as their new head coach? They've invested in that offensive line, starting obviously with acquiring what's my man's name? Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now you get him a tackle. Now you get him Armand Membo. Get Caleb Williams, Armand Membo. I think Caleb is due for a big time year 2 in the National Football League. We've seen that with a lot of guys. Joe Burrow got to the Super Bowl year 2. Lamar Jackson, MVP year 2. Mahomes Super Bowl in year 2 as a starter. I really like what I'm seeing right now from what the Bears have done this offseason. San Francisco, we know they've made a lot of moves this offseason and cutting a lot of guys, trading a lot of guys, moving on from some of their Super Bowl stars. I think they get a corner in this year's draft, Jedi Barron, corner out of Texas, to really kind of shore up the back end of their defense. I think Dallas, the Cowboys at number 12, get Omarion Hampton, who I think is a little bit better than Genty, but I think from a fit perspective, Genty works with the Raiders. Listen, Dallas, we understand that the running backs troubles they've had really since the fall off of Zeke back around 2018, 2019. They've kind of been rolling out a lot of guys that position. Tony Pollard. Last year they tried Rico Dowdle, who did kind of come on at the end of the season. I think Omarion Hampton would be a solid pick here for the Cowboys. I think he goes to them at number 12. Our next 4 picks, Miami Dolphins at 13 take a tackle. Again, a lot of this, you see some of these guys falling in the draft. You see who I have falling all the way to 15. Get to him in just a moment. I think a lot of this draft is because it's not quite the strongest first round we've seen in previous years. I think a lot of this is teams are going with fit over best player on the board. And if there's any team that needs to protect their quarterback, is the Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa. Josh Simmons, tackle, Ohio State. He goes to Miami to protect Tua. Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia. If there's any team that needs to upgrade their defense, it is the Indianapolis Colts. They desperately need a pass rush. They get the second best pass rusher out of Georgia from the Bulldogs. Mason Graham's the best interior defensive lineman in this draft. Again, a lot of this is not best player on the board. A lot of this is fit. I think he falls all the way to the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, Grady Jarrett gone. They need to shore up the interior of their defensive line. Mason Graham out of Michigan is the man for the job. Will Johnson, corner out of Michigan. Again, back-to-back Wolverines in this first round of my mock draft. Will Johnson will go to the Arizona Cardinals. Again, another team that needs to shore up the back end of their defense. Now we're sort of bordering into playoff-esque teams, or at least teams. Some teams made the playoffs, some teams came close. So starting with Cincinnati Bengals at 17, again, another team that needs to upgrade their defense. I've seen some mock drafts, them taking a tight end, a receiver. They're fine. Offense is not the Bengals' problem. Offensive line is to a degree, but a lot of the best offensive linemen are gone. I apologize to Iowa State for Jaden Higgins should be capitalized. That is my fault, my friends. Maxwell Hairston, corner out of Kentucky, really good player. I think he goes there. Jaden Higgins is a receiver from Iowa State. Obviously, the Seahawks have moved on from both DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Lockett's still a free agent. We'll see where he goes. But Jaden Higgins, team him up with Jackson Smith and Jigba for Sam Darnold. That's a duo that can maybe work at the next level. I like that. James Pierce, my man out of the University of Tennessee, goes to Tampa Bay. Listen, the Bucs are good on offense. They have a defensive coach in Todd Bowles who obviously is more than capable of shoring up that side of the ball, but they need a flash guy on their defensive line. James Pierce is that. Speed, agility, quickness. This guy was a monster playing for my Vols. I think he goes to the Bucs at 19. And the Broncos take Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State. I think giving Bo Nix, listen, the Broncos have one of the 5 best offensive lines of the league. They've got Cortland Sutton. They've got pieces. Bo Nix had an excellent rookie season, and giving him a solid running game would really, really help the young guy continue to progress and develop. Quinshon Judkins goes to Denver. Now venturing into playoff teams from a year ago, Shedeur Sanders ends up with my Pittsburgh Steelers in my first mock draft. So again, I talked about this when the Giants signed Russell Wilson after they'd signed Jameis, where it's to a point where the teams behind the Saints, the only team that I even consider after the Giants, teams either certain without question have their quarterback or they think they have their quarterback. The Steelers definitively do not have that. So Aaron Rodgers still is not signed. I think the draft will determine whether or not Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler, because he's certainly trending that way. But I think he's waiting to see if the Steelers take a Jalen Milroe, if they take a Jackson Dart. I think if Shedeur's on the board, of those 3, he is absolutely the best. Do I think Shedeur's a top 5 pick? I don't. Do I think he is by 21? Is that good value? No question. Okay, get him in Pittsburgh. Get him a couple of excellent receivers. He's used to playing behind less than ideal offensive lines. Hopefully, the Steelers can develop that and get better at that spot over the course of the next few years. Shedeur Sanders is the new franchise quarterback with my Steelers. That is why I'm picking my first mock draft at 21. We know the Chargers need a receiver. That was kind of the thing on them last year. They chose to go with Joe Alt, which I believe was the right pick and clearly has shown itself to be just that. But we knew they had deficiencies last year at tackle and at receiver. They decided to go with tackle. That has paid off quite well, but they're a little bit limited at wide receiver. I love Lam McConkey. I think he's more of a really good number 2 than a number 1, at least on a team that is looking to try and progress into a championship contending team. Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State, is an excellent pick for the Chargers. I think he goes to LA. Green Bay Packers, shout out to my sister. I'm sure she is going to be seeing where who our Packers take at 23. I think they go with one of the better edge rushers in this draft, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. I think the Packers are in desperate need of help on that defensive line on the edges, especially going against quarterbacks. Let's see if J.J. McCarthy pans out. We know Jared Goff struggles against pressure. We know Caleb Williams, again, that's a new offensive line Chicago. Green Bay needs a star pass rusher. I think they get that in Shamar Stewart. And then you go to Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon, goes to the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Minnesota with Brian Flores, one of the better DCs in the National Football League. Minnesota's really done a good job kind of addressing their offensive line. I think being able to kind of shore up that run defense will really be helpful for them. So the Vikings go with Derek Carmen at 24. Now going to the next 4 picks, Josh Connerly. Listen, if there's any team at the bottom of the first round that needs offensive line help, it is the Houston Texans. After trading Laramie Tunsil, which I thought was a weird move. I know there were some reports that came out about some bad practice habits. This guy's still an awesome player, but I think they go Josh Connolly to replace him. We'll see if he's capable of doing that. Offensive lineman out of Oregon. The Rams take the corner out of Florida State. Again, the Rams don't have a lot of flaws. I think they're a real contender to win the NFC next year, but try and shore up their secondary. Jahad Campbell fell quite a bit. I think some mock drafts have him going to the top 15. I have him falling to the big, bad Baltimore Ravens. If there's any team, listen, I say this as a Steelers fan, if there's any team that gets defense right, Steelers certainly do it, and the Ravens, without question, do it. Linebacker out of Alabama is wicked fast off the edges. I think he'd be great with the Ravens. I think that's a guy that maybe the Lions might want to take. No, I think Detroit plays more 4-3, but the Detroit Lions decide to go with Walter Nolan. Listen, the Lions have virtually no flaws on their offense. They don't need to go offense until like 5th or 6th round to the Lions. They got to go. I mean, you saw them getting DJ Reed in free agency. They're really trying to address that side of the football. Aiden Hutchinson going back. They've got some good players in their secondary. I don't think they necessarily need a defensive back to take in the first round. Take the best interior lineman at the top of the board. Walter Nolan goes to the Detroit Lions. And finally, with the last 4 picks of the first round, Nick Emenawari out of the safety out of South Carolina, best safety in this year's draft. Commanders need desperate help on the back end of their defense. They can't just continue to rely on Jaden Daniels to win shootout after shootout, close game after close game. They are going to need to give that guy help on the other side of the ball. And so I think they will do just that by taking the safety out of South Carolina. Again, another team that needs pass rush help is the Buffalo Bills. They take the best edge left at this point in the draft in Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. Then you got the 2 Super Bowl teams. Kansas City needs to add to their wide receiving core. They go with Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. Some people have him as the second best receiver in the draft. Matthew Golden goes to Kansas City. And finally, the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, Dallas Goedert's a really good tight end. If Colston Loveland is better, watch out for Philly in the NFC. But Colton Loveland with the last pick of the first round goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, and that is the conclusion of my first mock draft 1.0 for 2025. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.